Well, good morning, everyone. How are you today? What? Oh, okay. There you go. Okay. So just so we had more people coming, but it looks like we're recording this, so they'll be staying home watching it. But thank you for coming. And let's see. So we've got our illustrious panel up here. I think about half the county is here, and I want you to thank them all for coming because they're all very busy people and hard to get a hold of. And now you've got them right here in front of you. You can throw eggs and tomatoes. So I would like to first thank my district administrator, Tricia Kuzier. She takes care of me and everything that goes on in my office, and she's wonderful. And so when you call my office, she's the one you get it. Leo Liu, County Manager. James Smith, Economic Development. Lester Chow, Planning and Development. Yeah, what's your name? Andy Smith, Public Works. Mary Ellen Shepard, Deputy County Manager. Tasha Spears, Public Health. The illustrious Douglas Wolf, Assessor and President of the Tennis Club. And then we have Kent Volper, County Attorney. So we will, let's see, this is going to be an update on the county. As you all know, we've had amazing growth, lots of stuff going on, and they'll speak to that. I think last year we did something like 6,000 permits for single family houses in the county, and there's no end in sight. That puts a strain on planning and development, certainly on the assessor's office. Businesses are coming. Just hand over fist is great. And we'll be talking about that. James will speak to that. That puts a strain on our roadways and all the resources in the county. And for government operations, I think right now, with the number of people in the county, that we are doing more with less than we did in 2007. We have fewer employees now than we did then. And as you all know, something like COVID came along, and we had about 10 million people go on unemployment, but only about 6 million people came back. So we have so we're under, so while they always talk about the great employment rate, and our unemployment rate is just down there below 5%. Well, that's great, but there's not enough people to go around. So that's why you see all the hiring signs. We have the same problem at the county. We can't hire people to do the work. So we've got a strain on us. So I get to talk about that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to County Manager Leo Liu.
Good morning. Thank you for being here, and thank you for having me. I think it's been maybe a couple of 3 years because it was pre-pandemic. And the last time I was here, if anybody else is still here, I was noted that I started with the county when I was 12, and I was 14 at the time. So I guess I'm 16, 17 now. Are you doing the click? So I just wanted to, I'm Leo, County Manager, been in this position for over a year now, and it's been great. There's a lot of exciting things, good things happening in the county, and so it's a lot of fun. I wanted to talk about generally what the strategic priorities of the County Board of Supervisors is. We did do a strategic planning retreat, and we got all the directors, elected officials, and we hashed out what's happening in the county, what are the biggest needs, and what are the biggest priorities that the board wants us to focus on. Very collaborative with the other elected officials, but at the same time, they're separate constitutional offices. So those, Mr. Wolf, Mr. Volkmer, Mr. Lamb, they have their own priorities strategically that they work on and develop. So the ones that I'm talking about are the ones that the board specifically targets. And do we have a slide that has some of that content? No, not yet. Okay, that's okay. I'll go from head, and you don't really have a listing of the priorities themselves, but I'll go from memory, and I'll go down in backwards order that you're looking at the panel. So Deputy County Manager Mary Ellen Shepard is going to be talking about organizational effectiveness and efficiency. And the concepts around that priority have to do with developing a healthy and productive culture, have to do with the management of our resources and of the tax dollars that you supply to the government, have to do with the way we communicate and the way that we have access to services and the way that we've improved in being able to provide those both in person and online and digitally and on your mobile devices. The next, Andy Smith's going to be talking about the optimization of our infrastructure and the assets that we have. Not only roads, which is important to all of us, but things like broadband, our airport, our water resources. So those are all focused under that area. In what we're calling balanced and flexible growth is a priority. Planning and development, and Lester Chow is involved a lot in. That has to do with things like diversity of housing. This community is a great community that has a lot of amenities, and we have a lot of other parts in the county that are at different places in their lives or have different needs, whether it's workforce type housing. And so we want to make sure that we grow in a very flexible and balanced way as even the markets and the way people live their lives have developed and changed over the years. And then I will first talk a little bit about the financial strength that we're trying to accomplish at the county, and then bridge that into economic development. So over the last decade, the county has reduced their primary property tax rate from $3.99 to $3.69. And we want to continue as much as we can to head in that direction. As Chairman McClure had mentioned, we're doing more with less, in a sense. So if you looked over that same decade, we had increased our primary property tax levy only 3%, and the population in the county had increased over 24%. So we're truly finding ways to better serve with current resources and maximizing those as best we can. We have a AA credit rating, which is a very solid investment grade. The best is AAA. So AA, you'll probably get maybe 25 to 50 basis points over our benchmark, which would be the U.S. Treasury. You get to AAA, you do a little bit better. So that's our long-term goal. That's going to involve a combination of things. They look at financial management, which is very important, operational management, and the support of your base, your economic base. And so we're trying to strengthen and diversify our economic base. A part of our financial management and strength is also having a strong cash reserve. They look at your income statement, make sure you're balancing your budgets, and make sure that you have a nice, healthy reserve to fall back on if things unexpectedly happen or we get volatile economy, which will happen and which does happen. So we're at 20% reserve in our financial stability now, which is very healthy. And but we'd like to see that maybe increase a little bit, especially because as capital needs occur, we'd like to not finance and not have as much debt to do those, but be able to save and pay those as we go. One of the major factors in your tax rate is the valuation of the properties and the taxable valuation. In Pinal County, because we didn't always have a strong industrial base, we actually are at the bottom of taxable value per capita. So we're literally just ahead of Yuma, second at the bottom. It's a little over 6,000 per capita of taxable value. So the way for us to help reduce that tax rate is to increase those values. And one of the major impacts on that is having an industrial value, property value base. So we have been targeting some major manufacturers and industrial base kind of in our efforts for economic development. In this particular slide, which I think is very important, that goes along with that is, if you see at the top there, 118,000 of our residents leave the county to go to work. Probably the majority of that Maricopa County, but also Pima County. And only 33,000 of those people can live and work in the county. And then there's some that come from outside the county, but you could see the majority. It's probably it's over 70% of our residents have to leave. And so we're targeting to increase the economic base, both for the valuation, but also for the jobs. And so that people can, live, work, and play in the county. And so that those types of jobs, which we call primary or base jobs, are the ones that bring new money into the county and then continue to create the secondary and tertiary jobs with the services and retail and restaurants and all of that. So from there, we'll have our economic development director talk about some of those efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo, and thank you for having us here today. I'm still relatively new. James Smith, Economic and Workforce Development Director, about right at 2 months with the county. So I'm still relatively new, but I'd like to kind of share with you some of the things that we're seeing in Pinal County, because it really is an exciting time to be here. You know, we are strategically located between two major research universities, which is certainly a benefit to us. The area has a long-standing reputation and experience with the automotive industry, with testing sites all over the area. So, you know, we really are kind of a magnet right now for automotive manufacturing and research. You've probably heard about Lucid and Nikola, the Atessa project, but we really are seeing a lot of the suppliers related to that automotive industry as well. So that long-standing history really, I think, is paying off. And we're really starting to see some of the benefits of that. And then also going forward, some of the supply chain and some of the research that goes along with that. Some of the other things that you're hearing about in the news, electric vehicles, there's certainly a push by our nationally for our country to move in that direction. And certainly we have those companies that are working on that. We're seeing a lot more of that supply chain. So we're really benefiting from that national trend. You're hearing a lot about a shortage of chips, microchips, and with Intel's expansion in Chandler, so we're really kind of strategically located near Chandler. We're seeing some of the supply chain related to that. And so that's really been beneficial to the county, and we expect to see some more of those companies. Building materials, you know, we keep hearing there's a shortage of building materials, and you know, there's a housing boom. There's certainly a lot of industrial development. So you may have heard recently about Kohler's expansion. Owens Corning is actually re-engaging a facility they used to have in here in Pinal County. So again, a lot of the things that you're hearing about on the news, we are really benefiting from. We're at the center of two of the major economies in the world between California and Texas, with excellent transportation. So we really, I think, again, are benefiting from that as well. And then the push, one of the things that we're really seeing is that a lot of companies, a lot of the data centers, they want 100% green energy. And so that means often solar arrays. And so we're also seeing solar development in the county. Just also want to point out to you that, you know, the area around Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport is really growing and developing with primarily with aeronautical, aerospace manufacturing. So there's that as well in that area. And Queen Creek is really getting aggressive with the property that is actually in Pinal County. And they really want to, I think, expand upon some of that manufacturing that's happening around the airport. So we're hopeful that, as Leo discussed, some of those people in you know, northern Pinal County will have jobs in Pinal County. So you know, what does that mean? If you could go back to that other slide, Tricia. You know, again, it's a great time for economic development. We literally have tens of billions of dollars of development projects in the pipeline, with, you know, tens of thousands of jobs. So it's a really positive time. You'll see that our unemployment rate is much lower than Arizona's as a whole, and our poverty rate is as well. And we expect that as these projects continue to come in, to develop, that we will continue to see those numbers go down, and that we will be in a very solid position economically. So.
Good morning. Thank you to Supervisor McClure for having us out here. My name is Lester Chow, Director for Community Development. I kind of just wanted to go over, inform you just a little bit about what our department does. My department consists of 7 different divisions. Planning division, which deals a lot with land use. Engineering, which looks at the infrastructure work associated with those developments. The co-compliance, the enforcement of the zoning ordinance, building safety for your building permits. And we have our aquifer protection, or our septic wastewater systems, and then our finance and administration. So those are the 7 divisions that make up community development. We work closely a lot with both economic development for the commercial uses, work closely with public works in their development of the infrastructure that's associated again with these developments. The slides that I brought today, I kind of just wanted to show you the residential developments that we had. Like Supervisor McClure and James Smith had mentioned, our numbers for both applications, permits, developments are pretty much higher than they have been for the last 4 years. In this slide here, it's a report that the Home Builders Association of Central Arizona puts out every month. And what it shows towards the bottom, you'll notice there's Phoenix. And for the year of 2021, they issued 4,500 building permits. Right below Phoenix is Pinal County. So we were only second to the city of Phoenix at just under 3,300 building permits for the year. And that's doing it with a staff level of pretty much maybe a third of what the city of Phoenix has. So residential development, especially up in the Santan Valley, Queen Creek area, is really expanding. It's been increasing over the year. This year alone, for the first 5 months at the end of November, I believe we've issued about 1,700 building permits so far. And so it's been averaging about maybe 300 some odd permits per month. Next slide. So just for this area, for those that are interested, the developments happening in this area, of course, you have Saddlebrook, which is at full build out. What was approved is 5,300 lots or dwelling units. Right now, approximately 5,100 of them have closed. In the Saddlebrook Ranch area, that number is, I got it corrected this morning from the developer itself. They were approved for a total of about 7,000 dwelling units. So far, they have entitled 1,800 lots, and only 1,340 have closed so far. Then south of the junction, just on the border by Edwin Road, the Cherry on Energy, which is a solar facility, that zoning case was approved back in June of 2020. And then, of course, I think most of you are interested in is the Fry's Marketplace. That site plan has been approved. The permit is ready to be issued to the applicant. So.
Try to get that off as soon as we can. Good morning. Thank you. I'm Andy Smith, Public Works Director. First, the part of Public Works, we have 2 airports: emergency management, flood control, road maintenance and construction, environmental, which is basically our waste tires and roll-off dumpsters and like cleanup, neighborhood cleanup type of activities. We do transportation planning as well as real estate. Let me put a caveat in here that we have limited money that comes to Public Works from general fund. Our money actually is from the vehicle license tax and the highway user revenue fund that we pay for gas tax and the registration of your vehicles. As well, there's also a half-cent sales tax that is helping with doing some of our transportation and maintenance improvement programs. And so part of the challenge that we're starting to work with our legislators is how do we figure out these electric vehicles? Because obviously once you register that electric vehicle, it's still driving on the road. So we still have some way of wear and tear that's being associated with that. So those are some of the things we're trying to figure out how we can go forward with that. As well as the gas tax has not been, and I hope this isn't going to go south on me, but the gas tax hasn't been raised since 1992. And so that's a little bit of a challenge when it comes to the construction cost and buying right of way, et cetera, for roads, since the cost of everything else is going up. So let's get rid of that. Oh, thank you. You did. And since Mr. Volker's here, I won't talk too much about the $500 reward for submitting people for illegal dumping. I think I'll leave that for him. If he wants, he can have that slide for his showcase. But we are working in concert with the county attorney's office on that particular component. So some of the projects that we're currently working on are the Cordonis Road. If you remember, I don't know how many of you may remember when the county was going forward with the Pinal Regional Transportation Authority, there was one of those roads. Cordonis was identified as an improvement for the Regional Transportation Authority plan. And that actually road has been designed. We're currently waiting for the lawsuit to end on that particular. We're still in year 4 of the lawsuit. It's at the Supreme Court. We're waiting for them to make a decision. There's about $78 million in that account. So we're trying to figure out when that comes, then we can start some of the projects that were identified in that particular transportation plan. We're obviously working on Red Rock Access. We have safety programs, Lewis Johnson Drive, Midway Road. We're working on pavement preservation, Sasko Road. These are all specific to this district, which is Chairman McClure's district. There's obviously other projects going on around the county, but we were just trying to share with you all what's kind of going on in your hood. We're working on Pinal Air Park. There's a lot of activity from James's point. There's a lot of interest in the Pinal Air Park airport with doing some economic development as well. So we're trying to make some improvements out there to improve that marketability, if you will. Do you know where that's the one you see all the wings hanging and up from the I-10 interstate out there at Pinal Air Park Road, just south of Red Rock?
I got an airport with this job.
It's a very neat one. It's a great history. And if you get a hold of us, we actually have our aviation director will be more than happy to take you on a tour and show you the airport that has a lot of the planes and stuff stored in it. It has quite a history. From the 40s, it was teaching pilots how to be pilots for World War II. But I don't want to steal his thunder. So, oh, you did it. And so here we are with Edwin Road. We have an interesting situation in Edwin. We actually have a 20-year contract that goes, it's actually a much longer intergovernmental agreement with Pima County. But every 20 years, it changes to who maintains it. And so at the end of 2025, our responsibility, Pinal County's responsibility, will end in the next 20 years or 25 years, it'll go to Pima County. So just to share that with you. But we are working on, there's only about 3.5 years left of that. The county, Pima County, will continue in 2025. We did do some work. I think there was some issues with some water kind of hanging around and whatnot. So we did some regrading on that particular situation. And now we are, actually, I'm going to go back out there with the county manager after we're done here. He wants to inspect some of that work. So I hope it's done. I was told it was. Then we have these 9 projects that we're working on, or 8 projects, excuse me, Tricia. Sorry. And these are the projects that we actually get out of our transportation improvement program. That's the half-cent monies that are brought into the county from sales tax. And I believe that's all I have. Thank you.
We'll be doing some questions after this.
Mary Ellen Shepard, Deputy County Manager, thank you for allowing us to join you this morning. The role of public servants is to make life better. It's a pretty audacious claim, and we recognize that, but we challenge every new hire to Pinal County to live up to that claim. And it's also captured in our mission statement. Pinal County protects and enhances its citizens' quality of life by providing public services in an ethical, efficient, and responsible manner, delivered by a motivated, skilled, and courteous workforce. How do we make life better. It starts by recognizing that we have been given the privilege to serve. And with that privilege comes the responsibility to effectively manage the investment our community has made in our collective success. Your investment. How do we do that? In part by focusing on 4 critical areas of our strategic plan: organizational excellence, our people; organizational effectiveness, our processes; organizational costs and controls, our budget; and organizational connections, the system. To begin is organizational excellence, and the foundation to organizational excellence in Pinal County is in our core culture initiative. And it was a project begun over 5 years ago, and the county in its wisdom at that time brought together employees at all levels and challenged us to focus on what the needs are and how collectively we can meet those needs. The voice of the employees were heard, and by doing that, they brought the voice of our community. As a result of that initiative, projects like wayfinding, community civil service, increased communication all took place. And importantly, our core non-negotiables arose out of that. And that is accountability, commitment, and teamwork. On a day-to-day practical basis, organizational excellence is supported by our policies and our rules. And we have been asked by our Board of Supervisors to take a deep dive, close look at policies and rules and address everything from our health care, which we just changed to self-funded, to provide health care that is quality but more cost-effective. We've been asked to look at our merit rules. Our merit rules are decades old in their source. And do they meet the needs of our community today and our employees? Are they necessary based upon the legal landscape and the business needs of our communities today? And our policies, our compensation policies, looking at it from a more business lens. What needs to happen to focus on critical recruitment and retention so we have the quality people in positions to provide the work and the services as has been described by my co-presenters. Organizational excellence also means a highly skilled, highly engaged workforce, which requires effective recruiting, selection, onboarding, training, communication, rewards, and recognition, all areas of focus and all priorities for the county today. Next is organizational effectiveness, which begins and never ends with a customer service focus. What do our customers require? What do they want from us? Are our systems customer friendly? This focus on customer service moves from theoretical to practical in our performance management process. We have been challenged to build in our SMART goals, which focus on quality and efficiency and effectiveness. So every employee is held accountable for delivering services that are focused on the customer and the customer need. The work goes hand in hand with our efforts to capitalize on technology improvements, from new onboarding systems that allow qualified candidates to easily access available jobs, to things like seamless docs, which allows for forms to be completed digitally and signing to be done, ways that we maximize technology and the strength of our people to be effective in service to you. Then comes organizational costs and controls, our budget. Our budget this year is approximately 450 million allocated for spending and an additional almost 279 million in contingency. And while publicly the process may seem like a rubber stamp, I promise you it is not that. We have an Office of Management and Budget that works with county leadership and the board that has results-based discussions, does close reviews, looks at the needs based upon what it is we're trying to accomplish and achieve, identifies deficiencies as well as opportunities and innovations so services can provide and meet our mission and our goals. We look to spend money wisely. These efforts will actually be enhanced in the near future as we've added personnel specifically to focus on the management side of budget. And we're closely integrating our processes through training, shared solutions, and even proposed organizational change. Finally, organizational connections. None of us, bluntly put, and I don't care how talented the people on this panel are, none of us are smart enough to do this work alone. It's way too challenging and way too complex. So as a result, we work together in coordination and bring our best minds, our best efforts. An area where this is happening is in our criminal justice system, and I'm sure Mr. Vogler can speak to it. But we are focusing on reentry and mental health and bringing in the system partners to better address those critical issues. Why? Because we're committed to long-term public safety, not simply bring someone in the jail to have them get out 22 days later, but to address the needs so we reduce the risks. In doing this, we believe we will enhance the quality of life, not just today, but into the future. And as your public servants, as I started my brief conversation with you today, improving the quality of life is exactly what we are called to do. Thank you.
Good morning, Tasha Spears, Public Health. Thank you so much for inviting us to share some time with you today. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And so we carry on. So I would like to share with you the divisions of public health, because I know our focus has been so much on COVID for the last 2 years. But just to give you a sense of the broader perspective of what our public health team is doing and working on. So we have 9 divisions in public health, certainly central support and accounting and our central appointment desk. On the go transportation, we have 10 different public health clinics that serve children and adults, and we have our nutrition, our WIC programs, our vital records. We have environmental health that is really focused on a number of issues, which you've all seen this year, particularly with West Nile virus and fogging and foodborne illnesses as well. We also have our infectious diseases division, and certainly the emphasis of their work has been on the COVID pandemic. However, we are also responsible in that division for all infectious diseases. And so that means sexually transmitted infections, tuberculosis, hepatitis, any kind of other emerging infections that we see. So our workforce is also focused on that. And certainly we also have the division of community health, which is our school health liaisons, not only doing school presentations, but in this past year, working 24/7 with our superintendents in our schools, particularly on the pandemic and responses by school personnel in those capacities. So we do have all of those divisions of public health that we continue to serve with regard to our communities. With regard to our highlights, it has been difficult to identify particular highlights. Certainly one highlight that is not up there is that the environmental code was revised. The entire environmental code was revised this year, which was also a highlight of public health and our services past year. You can see we had also a tremendous response this year with regard to West Nile virus cases. They were 5 times the number that we've ever seen in the past. So there was a great deal of effort with regard to that. Just to give you a little bit of sense of what that means when we say responding to cases, the Public Health Department has identified of potential cases of West Nile virus, and then we wait for verification from the state labs as well as cerebral spinal fluid tests. And so all of that requires medical follow-up with case reviews. So just to give you a sense of kind of the labor-intensive work with regard to that. With regard to some of the highlights of last year, without getting into very specifics, certainly we had mass testing and mass vaccinations with regard to COVID. One of our priorities was not to insert ourselves as government public health into every single community, but rather to seek out our community partners. And of course, here our greatest partner has been Desert Life Pharmacy very early on. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much to Brianne and her team who have, from very early on, worked with us. We allocated vaccines when we were required to do that. And then, of course, last May, everyone in the community ordered their own. But very early on, she was our partner, as was Sun Life, out in this area. And certainly the federal pharmacy programs have also then stepped in with regard to COVID. Just an update as well. We have worked with Brianne in the past 2 weeks to have a contractor set up testing outside of Desert Life Pharmacy. So that certainly will be Mondays and Wednesdays. We have seen an increase in the request and the need for testing. And so we may be looking at expanding those hours as well. So while you might not see us physically present as public health, we definitely rely on our community partners, talk with them once a week, if not more. And in the early days, certainly we were on the phone and speaking with Brianne daily, and our gratitude goes to all of our community partners. Thank you so much to the Saddlebrook community who hosted many events here. And we can't thank you enough. I know Brianne was out here with the team, and we also assisted in sending FEMA support early on with some of the efforts that were made out in Saddlebrook. So as a community, thank you so much for stepping up and assisting public health. And we've never really had a chance to say that. So we are extremely grateful for that. You can see I'm not going to go through all of what is on the slide, but again, there are other aspects of public health that we have focused on this past year. We did a really intensive review and updated all of our HIPAA policies, procedures, our trainings. So those are just some of the things that are happening in the background. In December, everyone throughout the United States was asked to fill out a survey by the National Association of County and City Health Officials. And Pinal County was selected. We were selected as one of the, quote, rural/urban communities to participate from the state of Arizona in what will be called a hot wash, which is really an action after plan analysis of how our county did with response to the pandemic. So we'll be participating with other states that were selected. And so I'm really proud of our county that we have been selected. We'll be participating with Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and some other states that have similar demographics to us. So that will be very helpful for us as well. With regard to our goals, we do have a plan to strengthen our public health workforce. You have all likely heard in the media about, the difficulties and stresses on particularly healthcare workers, and it is similar in public health. We have seen people leaving the field of healthcare and public health, and that is a talent drain. And so we are committed to building our public health workforce, but in all areas of public health. So not only infectious diseases, but also in our clinics where we're offering childhood immunizations, well woman checks, and a variety of other services that we offer in our public health clinics. We are looking for innovative strategies. And so you can see we are committed to looking at, for example, offering some sorts of interactive mechanisms for people to understand their HIPAA rights, their protections with regard to their health information, particularly with this past year and the dilemmas we have faced. So we also are really partnering with the other departments. As Mary Ellen had discussed, our primary mission is community service. And how do we do that collectively with the other departments? Certainly, we have worked very strongly with our IT department this year on our public health, our Pinal County Public Health website and our dashboard, which now is really state of the art with regard to zip code data, tracking, mapping, and we are grateful to our other departments for helping us with that as well. We also are looking at expansion of areas that serve victims of violence. So our City of Maricopa Clinic is expanding to include an advocacy center, and certainly we are looking at our Oracle Clinic as well with regard to really looking at how we can offer as many services as we can out of that particular area. So once again, I wanted to thank you, especially this community, for all of the work you have done and really for the efforts that you have made as a community. And if anyone sees Brienne, just tell her how grateful we are, and as well to Sun Life and their other partners. So thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It's another great day in Pinal County, wouldn't you say? Yeah, it's wonderful here. Greatest place to live in America, if you ask me. I'm Douglas Wolf, your county assessor. I've been a resident of 5 years of Saddlebrook. HOA 1, Unit 1. We're in what we call the historic district of Saddlebrook. I'm down with my homies. I've been the assessor since 2013, and when I came into office, the county was a little short of money. In fact, we were at the verge of borrowing just to pay our payroll in the last part of the fiscal year, the first year I was in office. And so things were pretty lean around the county. And at the time, the board decided we're not going to raise taxes to get out of this. We're going to grow the county. And what has happened since then has been nothing short of a miracle as far as economic growth in Pinal County, with all the manufacturing. And Tim Knable was our former economic director. The guy was a whirlwind. God rest his soul. He passed away a year ago. But he got us on the course of prosperity. And the county is in terrific shape, I can say today, not only because of that course, because of the team of people we have working in the county. I have the privilege of working with highly qualified, highly dedicated, and intelligent people who know exactly where we're going, and we're all going there the same way. So I'm very pleased to be part of the team, and very fortunate, as a matter of fact. So thank you to all of you who are here. And I want to thank the supervisor for having this today, so that you guys could get us up close and personal and ask any questions that you might have. This is an opportunity to do grassroots government right here, belly to belly, as we say, right, in politics. The idea of the assessor's office is three things. We identify, classify, and value property. That's all we do. There's about 270,000 parcels in Pinal County. And as Lester mentioned earlier, it's growing every day by leaps and bounds, by new parcels being approved. Maricopa City is exploding. The Casa Grande area is exploding. And now south of Apache Junction is going to be unbelievable. That's going to be as big as Mesa. That area east of the 79 will be all houses at some point in the future, because people are coming to Arizona and they want to live here. And despite what you hear about water shortages and all that, we don't have a problem with water. We are in great shape as far as taking care of residential development, and my colleagues can talk about that more. From the assessor standpoint, then, we have a staff of we had about 50 when I started. We're up to about 65 now. We're growing so fast because the state law requires that if you build a new house, we have to come out and send a staff person out to look at it, to verify its construction and all that sort of thing before we can put it on the tax roll. And that's just the law. That's the way it works. And if we don't get to you in a year, when we do our cutoff in August, guess what? That house gets a free ride for a year. So we have to really get a lot of people going, and we've had shortages of staff just like everyone else. We've been working real hard to upgrade salaries and get people in place so we can just meet the basic standards that the state law requires. So we're doing great as far as that's concerned. For you, specifically people in Saddlebrook, we've had tremendous growth in valuations, as you probably know. Houses come on the market in 48 hours, they're sold. So people do want to live here. From a valuation standpoint, the state law is your valuation from year to year can only go up 5%. Not your taxes, but your valuation. And about March 1st or so, you're going to get a letter from my office, and I'm sure you'll be all glad to get it. It'll say what your valuation is for 2023. And there's two values on there that you're going to see. Your full cash value, which is approximately the market value, and we're never really that close on it, and it doesn't matter because nothing is based on that. But the limited property value is the one you look at and see is you should check that just to make sure that we're close to what you think our limited property value would be. And that's about 20 to 25% less than full cash. I know that's complicated. That's the way they do it in Arizona. And that's actually for 2023. Okay. We do it, we're a 2-year cycle in property valuations. However, when you get that notice, if you think there's something amiss, please let us know. You can appeal by just sending in a piece of paper and saying, I think you got my wrong square footage or whatever it might be, or I don't have this building on my property anymore. I tore it down. So that's what we want to do is all we care about is getting the numbers right. So that's our mission. That's our most important thing. So anyway, you should get that, like I say, in March. We're very close to finishing that for the year. We hand off that total valuation to the county board and the finance department and Leo's department. And they look at the total expected revenue from property taxes, sales taxes, everything else. And then we develop a budget. And I'm sure Mr. McClure will talk more about that because that comes up March and April and June. And that's how it's done. So my office doesn't send out the tax bill nor develop the taxes, although that's what we got most calls on. That and pickleball. Here in Saddlebrook, I'm out on the tennis court and I get a lot of questions on pickleball. How does that work, right? Because right now it's the most exciting thing going on down off Bobcat Canyon for Saddlebrook. But I'm telling you, those are going to be built, and we're going to have more pickleball space for those pickleball players here. So that's a good thing. And plus, it's good news this morning about fries. I guess that's still. See, the next thing we're going to have is a golf cart path down to the fries, right? Because everybody will say, "Oh, I don't want to drive down, Saddlebrook Boulevard. I want to ride on a golf cart." So, sorry I brought that up, Jeff, but I'm sure it'll be addressed at some point today. But it'll be a great thing because that'll be a great little shopping center. I think it'll support a store there and the other stores that go with it. So those are the good things that are happening. I welcome questions anytime you want. I'm here, like I said, in Saddlebrook. My personal cell phone is out there if you have a question, and look forward to hearing from you this next evaluation cycle if you have any questions. And I'll turn it over to the rest of the panel. I think Kent's next, and then I guess we're going to take questions afterwards. So thank you very much for coming this morning.
Good morning. My name is Kent Volkmer. I'm the county attorney. And I have to start with a somewhat light note because I don't have my pretty picture up there. I was a very late ad. And before I was allowed to even step on the stage, the great supervisor and Chairman McClure pulled me aside and said, look, you're an attorney and you're a politician. It means you're full of baloney and hot air. You have a hard 5-minute limit before you're allowed to step on stage. So I'm going to try and keep things relatively brief, but we're happy to answer questions. Very quickly, as the county attorney, many of you probably came from a state that didn't have a county attorney. I believe only Minnesota, Montana, Missouri, and I believe Nebraska, as well as Arizona, have county attorneys. Some places they'll call it the state's attorney or state's prosecutor, the district attorney. We actually have a unique role here in that my office is bifurcated. I have the entire civil division. So we provide the legal services for this whole team that you see to the left on one half of my office. The other half of my office prosecutes all felonies. Really what I'm here to talk a little bit about today is the criminal justice side, the prosecution side. We can answer any questions and provide any services we can there, but really I want to give you sort of a picture of criminal justice and really an accurate picture of Pinal County, because the reality is you all should be very, very thrilled with where we're at. So in 2019, we saw a historic low in felony charges being brought, meaning crimes were on a per capita basis, the lowest we could find and recorded, and I could get back into the 80s. That's per capita, so per 10,000 residents. In 2020, we did see a spike. We saw about a 10% increase. And unfortunately, we saw that increase occur in a lot of violent crimes. So we saw an increase in assaults, an increase in weapons offenses, sex offenses, robberies. We saw a record high in homicides, and we saw a record high in arson. That was in 2020. But in 2021, we've actually reverted back, and we've actually had less criminal charges brought in 2021 than we did in 2019, which would actually make 2021 the single safest year on record for Pinal County. That's great news. And let me put it into perspective for you. If you live in Pima County, you're about 3 times as likely to be victimized. If you live in Maricopa County, you're about twice as likely to be victimized. We as a state, or we in the state, are the single lowest under index crimes, so violent crimes, so person crimes. Yeah, absolutely. And I wish I could take all the credit for that. I can't. We've got a great sheriff's department. We've got a bunch of excellent police agencies. We've got a great judiciary, probation department. Everybody works together. I know Miss Mary Ellen Shepard talked about it earlier. It is a focus that we've put on, that Pinal County has chose to really focus on public safety. We do everything we can to provide services to keep people from reentering the system. Once they see us, we try and help them. And the idea behind that is it keeps you all safe. Just to give you kind of some perspective, though, what we really deal with, 40% of all of our felony charges are drug related. And when I say drug related, that's possession, that's sales, that's transportation. So 40% of all of our offenses. And if you look at people that are under the influence when they commit the offense, get a felony DUI or have a drug related offense, it jumps to almost 85% of all felony cases in our county are drug related. So if people ask me all the time, and they'll ask Mark or Lamb, our sheriff, and they'll say, what's the biggest issue? It's drugs. Point blank, unequivocal, it's drugs. There's no two ways about it. And that's really what we're focusing on now. We're hopeful for 2022. We got $4 million from the state to help trying to open a reentry, hopefully facility, but certainly a reentry program where we're really going to target those people that are getting released from jail, they're getting released from prison, to make sure that they're getting the drug treatment that they need. Again, I'm a stat guy. I love my numbers. 80% of people in our prison have a serious history of substance use and abuse. Think about that. 80%. 4 out of 5 people suffer from addiction. 75% have had a major mental health episode. So our prisons are full of people that have substance abuse issues and mental health issues. And what we're realizing is if we don't do something to try to address that particular issue, they're just going to keep re-victimizing. They're going to recommit new offenses. They're going to victimize all of you here in pursuit of them getting high. So that's really what our focus is for 2022. But what I want to leave you on is we're in a good place. I believe it was our assessor, Mr. Wolf, who said Pinal County is the best place to live in the state of Arizona, and if not the best place to live in the state of, the United States. And I agree with him wholeheartedly. Again, a regular citizen is twice as likely to be victimized as somebody here. So you have a lot to be proud of. Invite your friends down. We want to keep growing this place. And with that, I'll sit and answer. Actually, I'm going to turn it back over to Supervisor McClure and then answer any questions you may have.
Well, they did a nice job, I think. Let's give them a nice round. You just gave them a round of applause, but one more time. I think they deserve that. So I'm going to open this up to questions. Anyone have any questions? Look how good. Oh, I see one in the back. There's a microphone right down here in front if you'd like to come down. Otherwise, you can just scream at the top of your lungs and we'll pick it up. Oh, absolutely. We'll come to you. This is why we brought him, because he's so helpful.
Hi, I'm Ann Patterson from Saddlebrook. I was wondering, with the drug ills populating the prison system, what the public health department is doing as far as education for young people. Because I think if I was in high school and I heard somebody come and talk to us about it, talked about what happens to people that are using drugs, that maybe that might shock them. So.
Yes, thank you so much for the question. And clearly an important strategy. We actually have school liaisons that are going into the schools and offer classes on drug education. The feedback from the students has been very positive. And we have a number of students who have actually, provided the exact same quotes that you have just stated, which are oftentimes not even understanding things about fentanyl or any other kind of drug that is, being peddled at the current time. The other thing that public health is doing, and it's a little bit farther down the road, is we're actually working with County Attorney Volkmer's Victim Services Department, and we're in the planning stages now of putting together public health modules for those who are in diversion programs, very young persons who may have had a first-time offense. And we're working together with Victim Services to be able to generate those kinds of pieces of information, not only on an app, but in libraries and across different modalities to offer those. And County Attorney Volkmer might have a bit more, but clearly that's where some of our prevention efforts have to be very early on in the schools.
County Attorney Volkmer always has more.
I think he's making fun of me, but I will tell you there are some good things that we do in our county. So we have a couple youth empowerment programs. What we discovered is there, unfortunately, are a lot of single parents who are doing their very best to raise their kids, but they're also busting their hump, working sometimes 2 jobs. And having that conversation sometimes is very difficult to have. So we have a number of different programs where we're actually taking kids out and essentially celebrating them using one of our local high schools. And we typically get anywhere from 300 to 500 kids where we talk about very difficult subjects. And then we're also doing something that I'm really proud of and the county's been a great supporter of. And they're going to yell at me because I can't think of what the name of the program is. But essentially, we take 6th grade girls and their mother or their aunt or a woman that's important in their life, and we actually spend an entire Saturday with them. And we bring in female presenters, and we really broach those topics. And we talk about sexting, we talk about drug use, we talk about very difficult topics. And the idea behind it is it allows that woman in this young girl's life to have that difficult conversation with her. Because what we found from parents is just starting that conversation has been difficult. And I'm proud to announce I actually got a text while he's sitting up there that November, for the very first time, we're actually going to try doing the same program with males, with young males. And we're going to start in Casa Grande, where we're going to invite them and a male figure role model in their life to have those conversations, because public health is doing a great job. Public health can only go into the classroom, though, if the schools invite them. And most of our schools are good about it. But if the schools don't invite them, we don't have the ability just to say, hey, we're going and we're going to elbow our way in. So we do have a lot of collaboration. I will tell you that our board and all of the people you see up there have been very supportive, because we realize if we don't fix it as young kids, we're going to deal with them as adults. And it's much easier to address it, at the youth stage, as opposed to a 22-year-old, 24-year-old, 44-year-old.
Here on the right, sir.
Thank you. Vincent Biazzi from HOA2, Unit 49. My question is directed to Doug Wolf. Doug, would you kindly explain to us your glowing optimism about water resources in contrast to the governor's kind of downward assessment recently?
Sure. I think there's two factors. One is Saddlebrook is pretty much self-contained as far as its water supply through our own aquifer and resources here. And the state of Arizona has been running out of water for 60 years, according to Elliot Pollock, and never runs out. And really what's happening is a shift from agricultural use to residential use. And as farmland is converted to subdivisions, the water use drops to about 90% less than what it was as farming, cotton and alfalfa. And I'm not saying I'm in favor of necessarily all the farmland being converted, but that is the trend, and that's the way it's going. And so we use less water today than we did 50 years ago in Arizona as a whole. And to me, the trend lines and the facts and the data are indisputable on which way we're going.
Well, Doug, thank you for that. But it seems that there's an issue in terms of subdivision development restrictions, because the restrictions on water resources has been impacted and restricted on the conversion from agriculture to subdivision development. And that seems to be another issue at hand. That's a concern that I want to express.
Well, let me address it that way. It's really not in my lane, but we do have someone at the county that Supervisor McClure can point you to, who does water issues specifically for the county, hired just for that job. I don't know the person's name off the top of my head. I can't remember it. But the guy's a multitude of resources, goes to all the meetings and has all the data at his fingertips. And maybe the supervisor remembers who it is, but I can't. But we hired somebody for Supervisor Miller.
My memory is slim, but I have a really good memory right over here.
Bonnie Frost.
Bonnie Frost. There you go.
Got his number?
That's the man.
Thank you.
We can get his number for you.
Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
Just to top that, also from agriculture, you're using water, you put a bunch of homes on it. Some of us are looking at vertical farming. So roughly, you take a 100,000 square foot building, and it's 100 acres worth of farming in that building. So we're looking at that because that uses so much less water. They recycle 90 to 93% of their water. And that's a really great way to go. So we're some of us are talking about that on the backside. We'll call, yeah.
Thank you.
And over here on our left.
Yeah, hi. My name is Mark Randall. I appreciate the growth comments. I appreciate the fact that it helps the tax base and everything else. One of my concerns is that my wife and I moved here to Saddlebrook because we weren't interested in living in a Phoenix community or area that was freeways, highly populated, and just a lot of activity. And as you know, when you come over the hill, that's the big draw here because it's well designed, but it also has kind of the beauty and open area around that allows for wildlife and other things. So I guess what I didn't hear today is where's the balance over this long-term plan where we're going to maintain open space when we're driving up to Florence on that beautiful drive, cactus aren't disappearing because there's subdivisions. There's just a balance there that I didn't really feel we talked about today.
It's on.
Thank you for the question. So the balance is done the county has a comprehensive plan that designates certain areas for residential, whether it's and commercial activity centers, and it divides it up into different density categories: low density, moderate, low density, high density. That is available on the county's website. If you'd like to take a look at it, you'll see on the map areas designated for, again, residential, employment, other commercial, and then it also identifies open space and recreational areas also.
There won't be any freeways coming through Saddlebrook, though, so no. Any other questions? Oh, I see one over here. I think
I'm here.
you're there.
Hi, I'm Carol Steele, and I am here representing Saddlebrook Pet Rescue Network, and I'm the chairwoman. And I do not have a question. I have a compliment to pay to Supervisor McClure and to Leo, who I had the privilege of visiting with this morning, and they are aware of our needs at our county pet shelter, and they are also aware of the need to continue to give us the attention it needs to make it happen. And I just want them to know that the membership of Pet Rescue Network and the board thank you immensely. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think he paid for that plug.
Well, you know.
I think I saw a young lady down front. I'm coming to you, ma'am.
Kind of like, let's make a deal, right? You know.
I just wanted to ask what the Pinal County is seeing the effects of all the people coming across the border. Are we seeing effects? Obviously, drugs is a part of it, but what else is happening?
That would be Sheriff Lamb's territory, but fentanyl has increased tremendously in the last few years. I can't remember his numbers, but it was something like they'd see 25 pills, now they see 2,000 pills a day. It's massive. Drugs are a big problem.
Is there a lot of homeless as well?
Coming across the border?
Well, in our county,
I can tell you the homeless, like right around here. My wife runs Impact of Southern Arizona, and they deal with the homeless and a lot of the people. There's probably, I think there's like 15 or 20 homeless around here. There's not that many. A lot of them live out on Rail X Ranch. They're not supposed to, but they do. They live out there in the Washington. And you'll see them around, walking around. There's not very many homeless here. There are many more homeless up in Maricopa, in town. In fact, I was just in Phoenix the other day up by the Capitol. It looks like a homeless encampment just to the east of the Capitol. And so we don't really have a huge homeless problem here. Down in town, you have where they have more services. There's more homeless, but here you're pretty good. Yes. For what? Vacating the prisons in Florence.
I can cover that for you. So what they're doing is they're shutting down the historic central prison unit. They have it's called CB2, which is cell block 2. That was the original prison that was built 120 years ago. They actually took the gates from Yuma and put it on there. And what happened is the HVAC system is so old and so, let's call it vintage. They actually have to fabricate any pieces when it breaks down. And when they looked at essentially redoing the entire HVAC system, it was going to be cheaper to actually just raise the building and build a brand new one than to redo everything because of the way that everything's set up. So the state came in and said, look, we have enough beds elsewhere. We don't need that. And we have enough job openings that they can take every employee that is at that unit and they can place them in Iman, which is another facility right down the road, and they can place them elsewhere and have 0 lost employees and have beds. Now, I will tell you, saying all of that, that was the pitch they gave us. They just announced that CoreCivic, a private prison, is actually going to be taking some of those inmates. But I can tell you that the prison numbers as a whole have gone down dramatically. In the last about 2.5 years, we've seen a more than 10% decrease in the number of people that are in prison at any given day. And that's despite seeing, a continuing increase in our population. So We don't control the prisons. That's entirely the state's power, but they're saying, and this is what Director Shin, he sat down with me, he sat down with our sheriff, he sat down with the city of Florence. I believe Leo was a part of the conversation as well. And they sat down and just said, look, nobody's losing their job. We're able to relocate all of our employees and we'll be able to rehouse all of these inmates. So nobody's getting released early. It's not one of those where they're open the gates and they're just saying, have at it. That's not what's happening at all.
In the back, sir. That's state property, so we don't. Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's more coordination between the state and the town of Florence on that.
And out for weddings.
Sir.
No, I'm not.
Wait, hang on. Grand Prix. Oh, the Tessa racetrack? Casa Grande. The Tessa racetrack is by Bianca Road. Is that right? Bianca?
Yeah.
On the south side of I-8, and it has been graded and paved, actually, and they're using some of that facility now. They can't get water to that facility, so they can't build the condos and all the stuff they want to build around it, but the track is there. It is a big deal, and that's a water issue, and that's downstream. You bet. Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, sorry about that.
Thank you. That was one of my questions too, because that was supposed to be a big revenue for us, that racetrack that was going in. So, and then the other thing that you talked about was the manure from our cows, and that was being shipped to California. Is that still?
Oh, okay. We're not shipping the manure. Okay, so close though. They deserve it, right? So take that off the feed. So just erase that. Thank you. So we have digesters. So what they do is they take. It's a really great process, and I'll be very let's see, visual here. So when the cows eat, right, they hang out, they stand on this concrete pad. And so when they're done eating, they kind of, goes through them, right? And so what do you do with that? Well, you take it and they just come in with water hoses, like fire hoses, and they wash it down and it goes into the drain. That drain goes underground, goes over to the digester, maybe a mile or two away, because there's like 3 or 4 dairies around this one in Stanfield in particular. They take that, and it's got a high liquid content, and it's as what color you'd expect it to be. And so they take that and they remove the water, they dry it out a little bit, they put it in these big tall tanks, and they heat it up, and they take the methane gas from that.
Yeah.
And the methane gas is pumped up. That's what we ship into the pipeline to California. The solids that come out of that come out like a very clean soil, which can be amended and put back in. You cannot put it in. Let's see, that stuff you can. You can put it back into edible products like, cornfields or whatever you're doing. It can be used. Mostly it's used for bedding for the cattle, which then in turn goes right back to the water. Which
It's
goes
a cycle.
And that's what that's about. There's that digester in Stanfield. There's 5 or 6, maybe another tower coming in. We just gave another one. I think they just rebonded for like $90 million. They're upgrading it. And then there's another one south of Eloy, like Sunshine and Interstate 10, down about 3 or 4 miles. There's another one going in there. And that will also ship that same poop stuff over to California.
Which was a big revenue for our county.
It's not a big revenue for our county. It's more the dairy farms that make money. They get revenue from that, and then whatever the generation of the gas is. I mean, we get some because it's property taxes, I'm sure.
I have another, if I could continue.
Sure.
last night on the news, they talked about desalinization of the Sea of Cortez for Arizona to help us with our water shortage. So I don't.
That's been going on for 10, 15 years, talking about that's the governor talking, saying they're going to put $1 billion toward that program over the next 3 years to help Mexico desalinate water, whether it's actually in the Sea of Cortez or whether it's over on the oceans on the Pacific side. That's water, and that water would be made for them, my understanding. Be made for them. They would keep that water, and then we would take the allotment from the Colorado River.
Oh.
The trick there, of course, is that the water that they take from the Colorado River compared to what we need from it doesn't match. So there's some issues there, but
Okay. What my last Edwin Road. I'm on Unit 48. I come right out on Edwin Road all the time. We didn't see any difference. You know, some of us that live there, we haven't seen any difference. The sand still collects when it floods.
oh, Andy Smith, you're in trouble.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, and I'm sure my county manager will see that firsthand here shortly. So we're going to actually go over there.
Okay.
We will respond.
There is an issue there that like the gas line is like this far underground. They were going to come out and grade it one day. It's whoa, instead of blowing everybody up, they thought maybe we should kind of figure out what's there.
Got
That
it.
was one of the issues. But I do know they've been working on it because I drove by the other day and I saw a bunch of equipment out there, and my wife drove by going someplace. Hey, all the trees are gone. What the heck happened? So something's going on.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other? Oh,
May
yes,
I put
ma'am.
a different hat on?
Okay.
I'm now
I don't see
speaking.
the hat. I'm sorry, I don't see the hat.
Now I'm speaking as a traveler that travels Interstate 10.
Okay.
I get blown away with all the trucks, and they're exceeding the speed limit. And I understand that there was some conversation and works in the works as far as improving the rail traffic or the rail carriers that can come down through that corridor. As we develop more manufacturing, that means more trucks on the road until we get a really strong railway system in place. That's my opinion. But it's really painful anymore to try to drive that section of highway. And so anything that can be done to move that along, we travelers would appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll see what we can do. That's ADOT, so we don't have a whole lot of control of that. There is more talk and money put forward. Well, the governor put money to jumpstart the I-10 project to widen it across the Gila River community. But they're talking. We'll see what we can do. And the rail line, are you talking like the passenger rail or you're talking more freight? Freight. Yes. Sure. When I see Union Pacific next time, probably in a couple weeks, we'll tell them that. Okay. Put another track in. Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, right in the center.
Going along with that same question, I asked if the UP and the county was doing anything with that rail yard by
Yeah, I think they've suspended that project.
Another comment. Thank you. I've had the opportunity to be either called for jury duty or on jury duty in Maricopa County, Yuba County, Pinal County. They have my name in Pinal County.
You're obviously very popular.
Thank you. We appreciate that, and I'll make sure I let the whole team know.
Yuba, north of Yuba, the federal government put in a desalting plant by free for Mexico, and that was never worked.
Thank you. Yes.
And when I called the night before, they said, we don't need you. At what point does it count as time served? Having to rearrange my schedule?
I feel like I'm getting run over by the bus here. I can actually hear the beeping. It's not until you actually are there and are checked in. I will tell you we are working on it. There's been a lot of movement because of COVID. So now everyone's sort of pre-qualified, pre-called, because what we don't want is send a whole bunch of people up there that say either they have, COVID difficulties, they have health issues. I mean, there's a million different reasons. They have travel issues, they have hearing issues. There can be a million different reasons that you can legitimately not be required to serve. And our clerks found that they needed about 45 days lead time to know, can we get you enough juries for a trial? And what ends up happening in that 45 days is oftentimes a criminal defendant suddenly comes in and says, you know what, I'm really afraid to go to trial. Can we go ahead and resolve this case? So I know that we're working with the clerk's office to shorten that time frame. I believe it's either Mojave County or Yavapai has it down to about 10 days. And they said that's becoming a little bit short because the opposite issue that you described is sometimes 10 days isn't enough time to clear theirs, particularly if you've got child care issues, a million different things. So the clerks are working to try and make it as smooth and as efficient as possible. It's an ongoing process. We thought we had a pretty good system pre-COVID. COVID has thrown a monkey wrench in it, but they are actively seeking it. And I do know the clerks meet routinely across the state to try and figure out what is the most advantageous. I will reach back out to Rebecca. I've got a great relationship with Rebecca Padilla as our current clerk of courts, and I'll let her know that there was some frustration that was expressed on that 40-some day time frame because schedules are getting moved and then they're not being called. So I'll make sure she gets that message.
Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Door number 2. That's it. I guess we're done. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. I hope you got some questions answered or learned something new today. We'll see you the next time.